first selectman of North Stonington, Connecticut. I'm Pauline Smith of the League of Women Voters for Southeast Connecticut. The League is a nonpartisan organization that conducts debates as a service to the community. With me tonight are other members of our league who will be timekeepers for the candidates and who will relay your written questions for each opposed to the candidates. As a nonpartisan event, no partisan material should be visible in this auditorium during the debate. And I haven't noticed any, so I hope there isn't any. None of us working for the league tonight live in this district and therefore could be directly affected by the outcome of this race. As agreed beforehand, each candidate will present opening and closing statements of no more than 90 minutes each.
90 seconds.
90 seconds.
That was good.
For opening, the order will be alphabetical using last names, and for closing, the order will be reversed. Between those events, I will be asking questions posed by members of this audience tonight or submitted to a League of Women Voters email address. I prefer questions that all four candidates can answer rather than one just aimed at one or two. Each candidate gets 60 seconds to answer each question. Earlier speakers may request 30 seconds from me for rebuttal or clarification, and I will rotate who speaks first. We have limited time, so please do not interrupt with spoken comments or applause until the debate is finished. We want the maximum time to allow all candidates to inform you. Submit your written questions to our person, Muriel. Good. No oral questions will be allowed. Now to introduce the candidates who are seated alphabetically for my benefit. On your right is Robert Carlson. Next is Mia Kincaid. Then Brett Sorioni and Mike Irvine. Mr. Carlson will get the first turn of the opening statement.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Pauline, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this evening, and thank you to Weir Library for hosting, and thank you all for coming out. I'm going to try to hold the mic far away. Don't time it. A great crowd tonight, and I'm glad you're all here. I'm Bob Carlson, as Pauline said. I'm probably the selectman that you probably know the least. I work full-time. I'm in town hall, quite a bit less than Mike and Nia, and I don't post on Facebook, and I don't have a big personality. So you may not know me, but hopefully at the end of this night, we'll all know each other a little bit better. 2 years ago, three of the four of us sat here, and we weren't selectmen yet, but we told you what we thought we were going to do. And here we are 2 years later, and we've each created quite a track record for ourselves. And I invite anyone to look at my track record and see what I've done, because I'm fairly proud of it. I'm probably known as the conservative selectman. I tend to vote no on a lot of spending. Probably vote no. Add Mike and Nita together, I probably vote no more than both of them put together. It's not because I'm trying to stymie progress, and I'm not trying to be a negative Nelly, but I just think it's important to always wonder how the taxpayers are affected by a yes vote. And if I'm going to vote yes on something, can I look that taxpayer in the eye and convince them that I'm sorry. Oh, okay. And tell that taxpayer that why I voted yes, and can I believe in my answer. Thank you very much.
Nia Kincaid.
Again, thanks to Pauline Smith, who was here at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, with only one of us, me, and who are the League of Women Voters. Thank you for hosting this debate. And Amy, of course, who everybody loves, and her library, whom everybody loves. We're very happy to be here. I hope that we will be able to provide you with the answers that you need for voting on November 5th. I know many of you, so just a quick background. I graduated from Connecticut College, taught school for 14 years in Connecticut and Massachusetts, Next step was 14 exciting years working at Fidelity Investments in Boston before retiring. In 1995, my husband, sitting right over there, and I found North Stonington, have loved it from the beginning and still do 24 years later. This is a very special town, a special place where most of us enjoy the rural character and the variety of people, which we can see around us tonight, and it's just great. We also do wish to see businesses grow that fit in our town and will help our tax impact. That's happening. I can't go into the details, but maybe we'll get to that later. 2 years ago, after being involved in a long list of activities and voluntary work, I decided to run for selectman. It has been a great experience with quite a few achievements, such as Green Gables removal. Stop. That's it. It goes so fast.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and Wheeler Library for having us here. For many of you that don't know me, my name is Brett Mastriani. I grew up in Woodbury, Connecticut. I graduated from Johnson & Wales with a bachelor's in management. I've worked for both Fortune 500 and private companies before opening my business here in North Stonington almost 10 years ago. I've negotiated and managed municipal contracts, managed revenue and budgets in excess of $20 million. And I traveled extensively throughout the country. And I saw the development and overdevelopment of so many towns and cities throughout the country over the 10 years that I was traveling. I moved to North Stonington in 2006, and I started on the ad hoc school building committee. And I worked on that committee until 2014. I was a member of ICONS. I helped facilitate the first community conversation back then. I was the past president of the Business Association, and also worked with many others on the North Stonington Future is Bright campaign that we did signs and website for the school building project. I believe as a town, we need to do what we say. So when we present something to the town, I think we really need to follow through and do those things. We really need to work on tightening our spending and realize the impact of what we've done so far and let the dust settle a little bit before we move forward. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank the League of Women's Voters as well as the library and my colleagues for joining me here tonight. My name is Mike Argon. I'm the first selectman for our beautiful town. Prior to being elected, I was the chairman of the School Modernization Ad Hoc Building Committee. I served on the Board of Finance and was a founder of No Snow Fest in the Village, as well as the North Stonington Quarterly publication. I have my associate's degree in business management and my bachelor's in communication, and I own Farmers Insurance here in North Stonington and live with my wife Jen and my son Michael and daughter Abby. There have been a great many recent accomplishments, and I'd like to highlight 3 themes: collaboration, progress, and fiscal responsibility. Collaboration. During my time in office, we've begun using social media and weekly town updates to help with better and more open communication with residents. We've created a communications committee. We've implemented staff meetings and a capital project work group to look at large purchases in town. Progress. We've opened our new emergency services center, recreation center, middle high school, and soon our elementary school will open. We've dealt with rundown properties in town which have stood abandoned for years, such as the 95 House and Gary's Restaurant. Fiscal responsibility. With all this progress, we've also managed to be fiscally conservative, holding a nearly flat general government operating budget in the 2 budgets that have been approved in town during my tenure. We have provided unprecedented transparency into the budget with OpenGov software, so anyone can go online with the click of a button and see the budget and monies being spent. Today, I look forward to sharing some of my continued vision with you and hopefully answering many of the questions that you have.
Thank you. I neglected to announce it first, that this whole debate is being filmed and it will be posted on the North Stonington Town website. So you can let your neighbors know that they don't have to listen entirely. Now we'll start a round of regular questions with 1 minute for each candidate to answer. Starting with Mr. Carlson again, what do you see as the biggest single issue in town, and how will you solve it?
The biggest single issue in town is what it always is taxes. And with a new school building and a new firehouse, we knew that taxes are gonna be rising. We also knew that the town told us, the leaders in town told us, that if we do these things like build a new school, build a firehouse, change the zoning, that people would move into town, students would start coming to our schools, and we'd see a difference in the grand list. My feeling is we just need to hit the brakes a little bit now, cut back on some spending, and see how this affects our grand list in a positive manner. I think that if we can give the taxpayers a little bit of a break and let them know that we're watching out for the tax dollars, I think that's the best way to hold things back. Thank you.
Ms. Kincaid?
I basically would agree with most of what my friend here has said. I do think that we have done a good job with all the money that we spent for the schools, et cetera, that it was the right thing to do. And with that we have been very lucky with the kinds of funding that we've gotten, and that the increases that you've seen are not anywhere near as great as they might have been if they were not managed very well. I also think that we are seeing a lot of more businesses coming to town. It's slow, but it is happening. You may have seen in the front page of the New London Day about a week ago about us still being the top town under $25,000, 25,000 people, excuse me, with regards to our growth of our economy. We're on the right track. Thank you.
Oh, I get this.
Mr. Mastriani?
I'll have to agree with Bob that the single biggest issue facing North Stonington, I believe, that is taxes. I hear that when I'm talking to people basically all day lately regarding it. I believe that we keep saying economic development is our key to it and we need more growth. The fact is we have growth. As chairman of Economic Development Commission since 2014, year after year we can see that our growth is there. We actually increased growth in North Stonington about 24% compared to our next closest town, that's 4%. But we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. If you look at our revenue generated, the money's there, we just keep spending it and moving things around. It's when you look at the budget, sometimes it looks like a shell game where we move money here to pay for these things and that weren't initially budgeted. And I think we need to stop doing that. We need to look at some tax savings for our seniors as well.
Thank you. Mr. Aragona?
The question was, what do we see as the biggest issue in town? So I think economic growth is the biggest issue in town. The 24% growth is not hard on a percentage basis when you have little economic growth. So the percentage can be very great when there isn't a lot of businesses in town. I think the theme is that we're starting already here is taxes. And as I said in my opening statement, we've had a reduction last year in the general government operating budget. In fact, it was flat over our tenure over the last 2 years of the budgets we've created. In fact, in capital, it's actually been reduced as well. What I would see as the biggest thing we need to do is we need to worry about the fact that we continue to lose money from Hartford, though we fight for it. I wrote over 40 letters last year fighting for our money to get from the state, which we need. But we need to continue to work hard towards getting economic growth, especially in our economic development zones off exit 92. That's a key thing for it to keep us so that we're not in a position where we are just chasing individual homeowners for tax money. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Do you worry that cutting the selectman's salary may harmfully narrow our choices of interested candidates in the future? And we'll start with Ms. Kincaid.
Could you just I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
Do you worry that cutting the selectman's salary may harmfully narrow our choices of interested candidates in the future?
I'm not quite sure where the idea of cutting our first selectman's taxes, our first selectman's salary has come from at this point in time. It's not on our list.
Okay, it was a question from the floor.
Okay.
Mr. Mastriani.
that's one of the campaign promises that I'm making is to reduce the first selectman's salary and the health benefits. This was one of the things I get back to, doing what we say. When we presented the town finance and administrator's role, it was said at our town meeting that we would be looking to, over the next few years, reduce the selectman's salary and reduce those hours. That has not been done, and it's been brought up at Board of Selectmen meetings, Board of Finance meetings. I talked to the past chair and vice chair of the Government Structure Committee, and that was discussed. But it was definitely promised to the community. If we don't do that, we doubled our overhead of town management in 1 year. And for a town our size, it's unneeded.
Thank you. Mr. Herbo.
Yeah, it's a false statement that we've doubled our salaries of town management. In fact, we've had changes there, which have reduced them. But I actually have the Town Government Structure Committee report here, and in there nowhere does it say to reduce this first selectman's salary. I brought it up at the budgets we've created. My colleagues will tell you I have brought up looking at the first selectman's salary. It has been decided not to adjust that in the last 2 budget cycles. I will bring it up again next time. I think the point is, the first selectman, your CEO for your town, is not a part-time position. It's not a position that could possibly be done on a part-time basis, and I think that's what I've been hearing as far as a campaign promise. I think we've proven that there's a lot of work to be done still, and you have my promise that I am going to work continually just as hard as I have as first selectman over my first 2 years and the next 2 years if elected.
Mr. Carlson.
Well, I think that with the hiring of the admin finance director at the salary that we pay that person, and we have a great one, by the way, the person does a wonderful job. I can see where at one point the first selectman did both those jobs, did all the financial work and did the selectman work, the marketing of the town and so on, and the managing of the town. Now we have 2 people in that position, 2 people doing the position of what one first selectman did in the past. Now I think that times have changed, and it has gotten a little bit tougher, and I think that the person has spent a little more time marketing, as he said, with getting less and less money from Hartford. But I also think it would be done in a more timely fashion, and I think there could be a reduction in the first selectman's salary. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it might not be, I just want to mention, it might not be in that handout, but it was at the town meeting presentation of that project. I was there, I witnessed it, and so did many others in this room. And I never said that it'd go part-time, it'd be reduced hours, with set scheduling hours in town hall, so people can reach out when they need to. And I agree, outreach needs to be done throughout Connecticut and working with other towns near us, and that's where we should focus on that role.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I mean, I did see where that comment was made about making it part-time on things that you said before, but I would just say that times have changed and the job has changed, and there's no one up here that knows that job like I know that job over the last 2 years especially. Certainly coming into it, I have learned a lot in the last 2 years. It takes a lot to learn a lot in 2 years, and I'm very proud of what we've accomplished, what I have learned in the last 2 years, and I think we take steps backwards if we don't continue on the path that we're on. And again, I urge you to consider voting for me this coming election.
Thank you.
May I also speak?
Yes.
Yes, I was on the Town Government Structure Committee, and that was certainly talked about back then, but it was not agreed upon that would happen if we took on a finance and administrative person. And watching what Mike is doing for the town and the amount of traveling that he takes up to Hartford, everywhere, I cannot imagine how we would be where we are today if he was half-time.
Thank you. Next question. Do you see deed-restricted affordable housing as an enhancement of our town, starting with Mr. Mastriano?
I think that's one thing we need to look into for affordable housing. If you look at the Plan of Conservation and Development, it actually said that with 80% of North Stonington residents owning their homes, the town is clearly affordable. the units don't count because they're not deed restricted. We need to convert naturally occurring affordable housing into qualified affordable units. That was said in the POCD, and those are the guidelines that we say we live by. So we really need to look into that so we can qualify for under the state 10% guideline, but we should also work on challenging some of that 10% guidelines that the state puts out there as being just a frivolous number in my book of what that percentage is. If you look at our homes in North Stonington, a lot of them can qualify for affordable housing if the deed restriction was in place.
Thank you. Mr. Urkel.
Affordable housing is going to be one of my top priorities if reelected. I hear from people all the time, young people and older people, who either want to move back to North Stonington but just can't afford to, or older people who want to stay in the town but just are not able to afford it. And it's not necessarily that North Stonington is a totally unaffordable community. It's just that your income is different when you're at the beginning of your career or if you're at the tail end of your career. And there are affordable housing options and opportunities. And where I came from, again, I was in lending for a long time. I worked with realtors on different projects and things of that nature. And you know, it's a great opportunity to bring forward some housing options that are just, they're not projects, they're beautiful homes that we could bring forward and get some people to be able to make North Stonington their home, and those that are in North Stonington to remain here in North Stonington.
Thank you. Mr. Carlson.
If you're at the town meeting, we did a hand vote on the Wichita Hill affordable housing, and my hand was raised. I'm very for affordable housing. I think there's a confusion between affordable housing, Section 8 housing, and low-income housing, and there's an education that has to go on with that. Our town needs affordable housing. I'm very disappointed that did not go through. I think it would go through maybe on a second chance if there was more education. I know Margaret Leonard does a wonderful job trying to promote affordable housing. I champion her job that she does. I'm definitely in favor of it. The town needs it, and we need to do whatever we can to move in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kincaid.
I also voted in favor of the affordable housing at the town meeting and agree that we really do need it. Unfortunately, some of what Mr. Mastriani suggested of dealing with it at the state level has been tried over and over again to change the regulations with regard to affordable housing, because we do have a lot of affordable housing in town, but you cannot just go to people and say, please, will you change how your property is set up? And people would be very scared with something like that. So I think that the approach we're taking was right for Wright Road, and we need to go back and figure out how we can make that or something similar to it happen.
Thank you. Mr. Mastriani.
I started.
Okay, sorry.
No problem.
So next question. What have you identified as the issues most important or urgent to North Stonington's disabled citizens? And what are your specific plans to advocate for this community?
Thank you for the question. Of course, there's a lot of different disabilities, so that question is a little difficult to answer, but I will say just one of the things that we've done just within the last month and a half is we had a walk audit of the village area, which we take all the way up to the Red Onion and then down Route 2 and then to Katie's and back here to look at safety issues and walkability, bikeability, just safety in general issues. Then we followed that up with a community conversation talking about those issues. I'd like to talk more about different issues such as those in different areas in the community as well. And I would love to hear more recommendations from my constituents on things that we do need to improve upon. I think it's always important that we're inclusive. We need to be inclusive as a community and make sure that everyone is comfortable and able to enjoy the community that they live in.
Thank you. Mr. Carlson.
It's a tough question to answer because who isn't in favor of making a town more available to disabled people? Nothing has come in front of the Selectmen, Board of Selectmen in the last 2 years on this. I can't imagine that we would ever be opposed to anything that would do that. I think it's very individual on a particular business or a particular town building. If it had to be adjusted, I can't imagine we wouldn't vote to do that. So it's The question is tough to answer again because it's one of those questions like, why wouldn't you be in favor of making a town more accessible? I mean, everyone probably has someone in their family or a friend that has some disability. And as a society today, especially a town like North Stonington, where we help our neighbors and put a helping hand out, I don't know many towns that do the way we do at helping our neighbors, and I can't imagine we wouldn't do that, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kincaid?
Stop turning it off.
I'm trying to trip
Sorry.
you up.
Again, like has been said already, there has been nothing raised to me or that I'm aware of, other than when I visit the school, which I enjoy doing very much, and we do have some disabled students there, and I have seen them walking around now in the new high school, et cetera, and everything seems so very positive about how they are handled there. That's the only thing I can refer to with regards to this.
Thank you. Mr. Mastriani?
I have to say that I think we should look at our facilities that might not meet compliance with some things. I know we looked at, or the town looked at moving voting to the rec center, and there's some things that need to be done there to allow residents with disabilities to vote there. But I also think we need to look at the money that we give out in town. There was just a vote to provide open space for $40,000 to go to Abalone for open space, which I totally agree, it's a great cause. But we also need to look at the other things that we reduced funding to, like the Franco Lean Center, we cut back their funding this year. New London Arts Center, we cut their funding back as well. And if we're talking about helping disabled residents, those are associations that help. We need to bring the funding back for those.
Thank you. Next question. What role do you think the Board of Selectmen should have with regards to climate change? Starting with Mr. Carlson.
Well, in the last few months, the solar project that just got approved at the town meeting was one of the indications that the board and the town is in favor of doing things that we can keep the footprint down. So I think that we're a town that we can survive that, providing that the solar is not somewhere totally visible. I drive through Rhode Island, I'm disgusted at some of the things I see. I see solar panels all over the place on 138, which used to be a beautiful drive, and I can't imagine our town having those, or some of the windmills I see. I hope we never go in that direction. But as far as the properly planned solar project, which we have up on Wichita, that makes sense. And we'll probably still keep investigating other projects as they come through, providing they don't change the look and the feeling we have in our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kincaid.
Solid, Anita.
If I had our agendas in front of us here, I would say I could read a whole bunch of them. Mike has been particularly focused on anything that has to do with saving energy, etc. And the school is now going to have basically the top roofs will all be that way. We've got a number of things that we're doing for energy, including talking about the bags that are going to be used so that we won't be using plastic anymore. We've had a lot of things on our agendas where we went through them that are very much environmentally focused.
Thank you. Mr. Mastriani.
I believe we need to look at all options available to us to combat climate change. We're looking at solar in town now, but we need to look back. We did a study on wind quite some time ago. That's something we should look at as well. Regarding the solar project, I'm for a solar project, but I think the town, as a town, we need to do a better job at looking at those projects. I don't agree with the last project that was approved and the project that was approved for the school. One thing that slipped by is the attorney that we're using to represent us is paid by the solar company, paid by the volume of solar produced from those items. And also, I brought it up at the town meeting, he's also started an association that these people that won our bids are members of, and we awarded this through him to these solar companies. I think we need to do our due diligence in having our own attorney look at these contracts and making sure we're represented, not the solar farm.
Thank you. Mr. Urkel?
So due diligence has been done on solar projects, and I love that question. Climate change is probably the most important issue to me and facing us all as people. I think solar is an incredibly exciting thing that we can do, but there's so much more we can do. You're going to see solar on every single town building within the next year. We have that plan for the school, the emergency services center already. The Avalonia investment that was referred to by Mr. Mastriani, that would have been a great opportunity for more open space in our town. We have a lot of open space, but we still haven't met our open space goals for the town of North Stonington. Coastal resiliency, we're not on the coast, but we have potential for flooding issues here. These are things we have to look at and things that I've been a part of in different groups that I attend. And I think energy efficiency is something we're doing really well with our new buildings. And I think that we have an opportunity to be a leader in just eco-friendly projects, and that's something that I've been working on and will continue to work on if reelected.
Thank you. Next question. All selectmen candidates, if elected, what will you do to help alleviate the tax burden on residents?
Please read that again. Please read.
Yes, if elected, what will you do to help alleviate the tax burden on residents?
Well, I think we would continue to do the things that we are trying to do to keep the mill rate, if it has to move up at all, to move up very little, to continue to bring in new business so that we will have less of a tax problem. And that's, I really have no other brilliant ideas, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Mr. Mastriani?
Like I said in my opening statement, I really think to lower the tax burden on everyone is we really need to look at our spending again. We spend money on all different items that we really don't need to, but we really need to look into spending in joint services with the Board of Ed, partnering with other towns around us. When it comes to economic development, we really need to look at some regional plans that we can put in place with Stonington, where we market our region, North Stonington and Stonington together. And the benefit to that is we're not fighting over what side of the town line it goes on. And we split those tax revenues based on property tax, whether it lands in Stonington or North Stonington. And this will help us market this region a little better than we are now.
Thank you. Mr. Urkel?
As I've said, over our tenure, the last two budgets created have been an actual flat budget. That's been very important. We created an encumbrance policy under our board's tenure where you cannot spend money after the fiscal year. No board before us did that. So we can't spend money now. And once the year ends, the money's spent or it's not used. Little things. OpenGov, which I mentioned in the opening, it's where you can go and you can see the town's budget at any time with a click of a button. Renegotiated that down from 17.5 to 13.3. These are just some little things that we've done. We've looked at alternative printing sources and we've saved a lot of money on that. We're comparatively shopping our supplies for the town, which wasn't being done before I was there. We have a great new contract that's going to be coming out for our trash that we actually will be saving money on that as well. Postage. I could name off tons of things that we've done little, and also some really big things when it talks about renegotiating the financing, the short-term financing for the school building project. We saved hundreds of thousands of dollars because of the way we renegotiated that short-term financing of what we would have spent.
Thank you. Mr. Coast?
I think the best way is to cut down on spending on things that are nice to have. We have some things come in front of us that are nice to have and things that come to us as need to haves. I pretty much vote against all nice to haves and about half the need to haves because I'm not sure we really need them. I can think of over $200,000 we spent on things that were nice to haves in the last year. It was the new firehouse rebate garage built that I voted against that went through. It was over $200,000. I think sometimes we have in the budget, we have the committees and boards and they have money left over, and as we get closer to June, it seems like that money gets spent. There was some money spent from the rec department at the end of the year this year that I didn't think had it had to be spent. And we really need to cut down on that type of thing, and not have committees and boards think that if I have money left over and I don't spend it, I'm not gonna get as big a budget the following year. So that would be, the thing is, we could cut down on spending on things that are nice to have. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I just wanted to touch base. Mike mentioned that we save money on our short-term loans, but what we don't mention is that we changed our school payback from 20 years to 30 years on that school building project. When it was presented to town, it was presented as a 20-year payback. We extended it to 30 years. That adds hundreds of thousands of dollars to the overall project. We did the same thing with the tanker truck. To pass the budget, we went from 5 years to 10 years, which added about $150,000 to that. We also, over the past 2 years, de-obligated funds for capital projects, which artificially inflates our revenue, and we spent that money.
Thank you.
Rebuttal?
Yes.
So the things that have been mentioned, first of all, the financing number on the USDA financing doesn't change 20 to 30, and it was actually advertised at the town meetings as being the potential of a 30-year repayment on that. The things that were just mentioned were all things done to help relieve the burden of the taxpayer. Yes, it's true, when you lengthen financing, everyone knows it will cost more in the long run, but we were being cognizant to try to think of, okay, how can we relieve the taxpayer? And rates are at historical lows right now. So yes, we will pay more, certainly, on some of these things, and this isn't happening with everything by any means. We've bought things out, and purchased things without having to finance them, certainly, but, we're being thoughtful, and the financing I was talking about was the short-term financing, which is being financed for the school building project in the interim, and that we ended up getting a very low rate, and even lower rate now, of 2% on that short-term money for the last phase of the financing.
Thank you. Next question. North Stonington has a rich history through the 18th, 19th, and early 20th century. As a candidate, do you have an historical preservation plan in mind? Starting with Mr. Mastriani.
To be honest, at this time, I don't have a historical plan in place, but it'd be something I would definitely want to look into. But I also think that farming is a huge part of this town and why we love this rural character. So I think we need to work on businesses that support those strengths that we have in the farming community. We also should look at, instead of sometimes spending money on open space, look into saving money and spending money on our farms. And we can do that through purchase and transfer of development rights that we purchase from these farms to make sure those farms are here to last and we continue farming those farms.
Thank you. Mr. Ergo.
So we just had, as I mentioned before, a community conversation right here in the library. We had about 50 or so residents come together, and one of the topics was historic preservation. And so actually on our Selectmen's meeting tomorrow night, which you're all invited to, I'd love to see, 100 people at our meeting to replace the 5 that are usually there if we're lucky. But that's something that we do want to look at more. It was focused on the village area, but certainly in town there's a lot of history, things we've been talking about throughout our town. And I think that is a high priority as we kind of continue on this next term that I'm looking forward to hopefully being here for, to talk about things like our 1750s house, which I know we have plans for at Hewitt Farm, and we want to see some preservation there. But there's a lot of other areas as well. And as far as a plan, there is a historic preservation plan, and certainly looking more forward to getting into that in my second term.
Thank you. Mr. Carlson.
Okay, of the 4 of us, I don't know anyone that loves history as much as I do. I've made it a point to learn as much history about this town. I bet I know more history than most of the people that are here, even people that lived here for 30 or 40 years. How many people know the official town colors were blue and orange at one time? Okay, so I have to explain to people why that is. But now, after the meeting, when I ask me, I'll tell you why it's blue and orange. But I love history. The town's full of history. I hate it when we have a structure that's not saved, it's not renewed. I don't know, there's no plan in place for historic preservation. I did ask to be the liaison to the historic Beautification Village Committee. I went to all their meetings when they were meeting. And if we can, this history, this town, this particular village is the only village in the state of Connecticut. The entire village is in the historic district. And it's recognized that way. I think signage coming into the town saying that you are now entering the historic village of North Stonington would be a wonderful thing to have. So people can appreciate it as much as I do. Thank you.
Ms. Kincaid.
Just turn it back.
Actually, I would have said almost everything that Mike said because I was involved with all of those things that he's talking about. And we had a really good community conversation about the village here. That's something that we're going to pursue. We also are, as he mentioned, starting to work on the what we call the 1750 farmhouse over at Hewitt Farm, and that work on that should start very shortly. So we're definitely interested in the historic buildings. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. You hear that the school budget is on time and on budget, but is there enough money to take down the old elementary building? Starting with Mr. Virgo.
So, as was said in the town meeting where we've had the largest attendance at any town meeting, the takedown of what they're talking about as the middle school building was an alternate on that project. Right now, we've gotten the PCBs fully remediated at the school, the elementary school, and we were waiting to get that number to see if the middle school would be able to be taken down as part of the project. That will be decided shortly, but things that have come through at the community conversation were the fact that once that middle school is taken down, it really exposes the village to Route 2, which I don't think was thought of at the time. So there's going to be things that are going to be discussed with regards to the possibility of the middle school being taken down, such as alternative uses for that building. And we're just talking about one portion of that building. For those who are not familiar with this question or this building, certainly see me afterwards, but that's something that's being looked at, and we will weigh all of the options and have a discussion, of course, in a selectmen's meeting when the time comes on that.
Thank you. Mr. Carlson.
So I think when we hear on time and on budget, it's kind of deceiving in a way. I was on the school modernization building committee, and I think if you talk to any member there, they will admit that it was made an ad alternate when budgeting got tight, and there was a petition in the whole school building project to push back and things get more expensive. However, I think they would all admit that there's probably not going to be enough money to take it down. But I think if you ask most of the citizens in North Stonington, I think it's still part of the referendum. It was voted on in May 16th of 2016, and it was voted, it passed by 3 votes that that building was coming down. The second referendum, all it did was move forward on what the first referendum said. So I think that in the minds of most people, they think the building's coming down. And I know Mr. Ergo said it will open up the town, but you can plant trees, you can put a park. There's things you can do to keep that opening not so open. So I think there's alternatives to that. But I think that most people would recognize the fact that that building was part of the plan. They still think it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kincaid.
I think that this is all just waiting to find out how we can move forward. If there is not enough money left because of the amount of problem soil over at the elementary school, we can't make the money come out. It's just not possible. So we are going to have to wait and see what happens before we can move forward.
Thank you. Mr. Mastriani.
I have to agree with what everyone said, that there is a waiting game here. But I have to agree with Bob that when this was initially presented to town, and I sat on the former school building committee for 6 years, and that's when I actually first met Bob, that school was always meant to be taken down because of the condition. And if you go back to the original school presentation before that first budget went through, Mr. Ergo stands up and tells the residents that that school is in such bad shape that it needs to come down. That we tried to look for other sources to go in there, but it's in bad shape, and that school will come down, and the money for that is in this presentation. You can review it, and I understand things happen, but if we're honest and open from the start, compared to saying we're on schedule, on budget, I think then we can all be prepared for the outcome and work together to solve it, compared to hiding it until the end and then springing upon the residents. It goes back to my first statement. We need to do what we say and promise.
Thank you.
So again, there was a meeting that was attended.
Are you rebutting?
I'm rebutting. Yes,
Okay.
I'm rebutting. Thank you. There was a meeting that took place where the most residents ever were at it, and it was very clearly stated. And yes, I did say it would be coming down when we first went to vote, but when we came back the second time to vote on the revote, we were very clear it was an alternate. My opponent put forth school building projects when he was the chair of the ad hoc building committee for $3 million and $8 million more than the one that passed, which we put forward, that $38 million. So I think that we've gotten a bargain in this town. If you ask the state about the cost of these schools, you'll see that we are one of the lowest per square foot on these school buildings. It's unbelievable when we go to the state and you hear about what it is. So I'll just say that, certainly I think we all envisioned originally when we went to vote that the middle school portion would be coming down, but you have to move with things, and we'll see what happens, as Nita said, and we're going to do our best to do what's best for the town. I don't plan on moving into that building or something. If we need it to come down and we can afford it, certainly I think that's what we intended to do.
Yes.
One thing has to be considered is the Wheel Library and the deed restrictions that are on that property. The Wheel family gave that property to the town for secondary use only, for school use only. That property only can be used for schools. It can't be used for town halls, it can't be used for businesses, incubator companies, and so on. When I went to the village conversation, there's a lot of ideas of great things to do with that building, except we can't. The Wheel Library has told us we can't. Their board of directors have said, no, we're not going to do that. The Wheel family went to their graves thinking that's going to be used for secondary. If the buildings come down, the land reverts back to the library. So I think that has to be considered on what they're the ones that donated the land. It has to be considered what their feelings are on the matter. Thank you.
Mr. Mastriani, you wanted to
I just want to touch base on what he said about the prior school building that got voted down. Yeah, maybe before reimbursement it was that, but actually after reimbursement, the projects that we presented prior, and Bob was part of that, was about, I think, $700,000 after reimbursement difference of what actually went through. And those school buildings that were presented prior had a lot more in them than what we ended up with.
Thank you as well. Next question, what plans do you have for the improvement of drainage of Kingswood Drive near cross of Old Colony after 4 major floods? We start with Mr. Carlson.
That's a tough one for me because nothing's been brought in front of the Board of Selectmen as far as plans for drainage. I don't live in that community. I know there's been a problem there, but at this point, nothing's been brought in front of us to look at, to discuss, or to vote on. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kincaid.
I think it's been a problem for years, and I'm not sure that we have any solution for it at all. And I agree with what Bob said, there has been no discussion about it recently.
Thank you. Mr. Mastriani.
To be honest, I don't have a lot of insight on that one. I know that there were some issues with proper maintenance from the state and from the town, which partially caused some of that. And then there's beavers. So you can't account for everything. I think the town did a great job at responding to that, and I think our fire and EMS that helped out did a great job. And then some residents let me know that the town highway department did what they said when they got there the next day and cleaned out some of those drains to make sure the flow would go out properly. So I have to give them kudos for responding quickly.
Thank you. Mr. Ergo.
Yeah, I think the question is probably in reference to there was a flooding incident recently in the last couple of months, and drainage had been replaced in Kingswood in the last 8 years or so, and I live in Kingswood, I live in that neighborhood actually, and I was on site when we had that flooding, which was due to the Assaconk Swamp backing up. A beaver dam actually caused it, and we haven't had the issue since, and the state will clean it out immediately. I think what I want to see done in my next term is repairing of the roads in Kingswood and Cedar, which were done very poorly, and that is something that will be done if I'm reelected. And as far as the drainage, we have taken a scope looking at the drains. We do clean the catch basins every single year. and we have a good idea of where the problem areas are. And again, it was kind of a freak thing, and I do think over the last, say, 10 years, since the drains were replaced, there hasn't been incidents like that, with the exception of this freak beaver dam situation.
Thank you. We're now down to the last question we'll have time for. As a role model in this town, how would you define integrity and give an example of you demonstrating integrity? Starting with Ms. Kincaid.
Wow. Well, I guess I can say that I hope that I do demonstrate integrity in the way that I communicate with people in town, in the way that I manage the editing of the North Stonington Quarterly that hopefully you all get and read. I don't think I have lied to anybody or done anything inappropriate in my role.
Thank you. Mr. Bastian.
With this question, there's a few things that I can address. Regarding the working with everybody, I have a history of being on boards and commissions and volunteering and working with people, no matter party, no matter thoughts, because we can sit down and work through those things. This is the first year that I've seen such a divide in North Stonington regarding parties, that we really need to change that. In being a role model, you need to work to bring those things together. Another thing when it comes to integrity is we had a longtime resident or employee of the town that was let go after one budget vote that was never discussed with the other Board of Selectmen. I met with her, and she was such an asset to the town that I went to the Board of Finance, I went to the Selectmen, and I showed them that she was let go without the proper authority. Ultimately, she was offered her job back and she didn't take it, and that was understandable. But it comes down to the integrity of standing for people that you believe in, that something happened that wasn't proper, and you need to respect those people.
Thank you. Mr. Irvin.
Yeah, I think, I try every day to just do the right thing. And it's not easy, and having this position is one where you're out there by yourself a lot of the time and taking a lot of criticism. And I hope my character has spoken for myself this term. I just always try to do the right thing. And I think that's really the best I can do. I'd like to say humility is one of my most endearing qualities that I look for in people, and I try to be a humble person. And I think you notice, I'm not somebody who's out there, though I might be on weekly videos, I'm not out there taking credit for things. I'm not out there talking about the accomplishments. It's very uncomfortable for me to have to do this in front of you all actually tonight, though I don't mind speaking. But, I tried to do the right thing over my tenure, and I hope that shines through in the work that I've done.
Thank you. Mr. Carlson.
First, let me vouch for Ms. Kincaid's integrity. She's a wonderful person. So, this town's given my family so much. I moved here in 2003, and I can't imagine living anywhere else. I don't do this for anything. I don't know if you know what the second and third selectmen get paid, but it's about probably enough to pay for my golf during the summertime. I do it because I love it. I wish I was younger, but not that old yet. I just want to be a good selectman. I'd like to do it for a few more years. When you asked if I'm going to get reelected, it should be inquired if I don't, because I'm running unopposed. So I should be reelected. I'll do this for as many years as I can. And as far as integrity goes, I think everyone knows me. I always tell the truth, sometimes even when it hurts. But I try to be honest, and I try to do the best job I can for the town. I love the town of Stonington. I can't imagine being anywhere else. Thank you.
I don't know.
Yes.
It's not a rebuttal to Bob's integrity. But it is a rebuttal to Brett's comment. And, I think this is something that when you're first selectman in this town, you're going to have to make really difficult decisions. And last year our budget failed, and we had to make a difficult decision. And we had $90,000 tied up in a secretarial position. And I will tell you, from an integrity standpoint, That was a very difficult decision. That was the hardest probably on me because I'm affected by it more than anyone in that position. And I will say that a glowing letter to our 32-year veteran of this town went out. A severance situation was very fair, and she's utterly missed. But these aren't the decisions that I want to have to make in this position. This is what I was elected to do.
Thank you.
Can I make a rebuttal to that, please? Yep. Right there, it shows the difference. I've talked to Robin about this. The next day after Robin was let go, or at the next selectmen's meeting, it was brought up to the other selectmen, what positions should we look at eliminating from town? Now, if this was a true budget-related issue, it should have went through all the selectmen to make that. The other positions in town hall, we're gonna go through the selectmen to see what they should cut, what should they realign. That didn't happen. It was a knee-jerk reaction, and we don't need that in town politics and in town hall. It opens us up to liabilities that would cost us all tax dollars.
Thank you. Mr. Drowsy.
The only rebuttal I had was the use of the word "we." That was the email I got the following day after Robin was let go, and I was informed she was no longer part of the town, so employed by the town. So the use of the word "we" there was not correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. It's now time for closing statements. Each of you gets 90 seconds. Rebuttals will not be allowed, and we're going to start with Mr. Urgo.
Thank you very much, and I think this was a great opportunity to hear from people who are eager to help the town in difficult times. I'm confident that this debate has provided clarity and a definitive determination to those who are still undecided. It's my sincere hope that if you choose to vote for me to continue the progress we as a community started just 2 short years ago, if chosen for a second term, I will work within the community for continued progress and fiscal restraint, which will lead North Stonington to balanced budgets and a controlled tax rate. It's essential to the future of North Stonington to continue the path of progress and veer as far possible from previous years of stagnation and indecision, which I had watched around me for many years. This is the primary reason I ran 2 years ago, and it is my #1 motivation in choosing to run again, as it is only through continued growth that we as a town will be able to provide for the needs of every resident. If re-elected, it is my goal to continue to move the town forward on the path we are on, focusing on the fundamentals North Stonington was built upon, while maintaining our character and charm. As a Connecticut resident, I am also concerned about revenue loss and increased taxes from the state, just like so many of you. I want to work hard and efficiently as a community to move forward with solutions that will benefit us all. It is my goal to achieve a more balanced budget and a controlled tax rate through progress and proactivity. Look around at all the work we've already done, at the results, such tireless dedication to the town we all love. Please help me to continue to serve this place we call home by voting for another 2 years of growth, progress, positivity, transparency, and collaboration. Working together, we can accomplish so much. Please support me, Mike Urgo, for your vote on November 5th.
Mr. Carlson.
I thought it was going last.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Me?
Mr. Montiani.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight, and I've appreciated serving the town since 2008. I find there's a huge difference between moving the town forward and changing the town. I think it's important to remember why we moved here in the first place and the fundamentals that have kept us so strong for so long. Yes, some people might say we were stagnant for so long, but some of those same principles allowed us to do the things that we are doing today, allow us to build a new school, allow us to build the fire department and move forward. We need to keep some of those principles and not forget the past. We need to move forward together as a community. And we can only do that if we all work together. And throughout my time, I never take credit for doing one project or the other. People ask, what's your biggest accomplishment? Personally, I don't have any big accomplishments. We've done it together. On every board and commission I've worked for and worked with, we've done it together. And I think it's important that we continue to do things together. And that's where I talk about lowering the selectman's salary and the hours. It's about bringing more in front of the full board of selectmen and making choices that affect all of you with more than just one voice. We have Christine, who does a great job in town hall. We need to allow her to do what she was hired for. We really need to look at our spending and control it. We know the school project was already passed and that's coming, but we need to tighten our belt on everything else so we can afford to live here. I'm just going to end with one thing. Winston Churchill said, "Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen." And I ask for your vote on November 5th.
Thank you. Ms. Kincaid?
Politics was never on my list until 2 years ago. When I came to North Stonington, this very special place, I did just about everything I could in terms of volunteering and doing various things in the town to help the town. But I never thought that I would go into the political side of it, which is never very pleasant. However, I felt that I could do something. I felt that I have done something, and I'm glad to have decided at the very last moment to have run once more for 2 more years so that we can complete some of the things that we are working on. I think that we have been a very good team, Bob, Mike, and myself, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work. And of course, you know that I'm in the same situation he is. You guys, we get into the office anyway, so you don't have to worry about that. But I would hope that you would think hard about the experience and knowledge of the people who are running against each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carlson, you get the last word.
Thank you. So as you see, I don't have notes. I don't bring notes. I tend to just speak from the heart, whatever pops into my head. And what pops into my head now is what Ms. Kincaid just said. I hate to disagree with Ms. Kincaid, but I don't feel the teamwork that everyone talks about. We did, in the first 2 months when we first took off, they did. Then I didn't feel that anymore. I was getting asked questions about, what do you know about this? And I said, I don't know anything about it. What do you know about this? I don't know anything about it. And I would have to go to the Board of Selectmen meeting and say, what's going on? Or send an email, what's going on? So I don't think I was always kept in the loop. I think that we have probably 50 people in this town that are boards, commissions, appointed, elected. We have 50 brains of people that we can tap into. And I think as a small town, we need to do that. We need to bring everyone together and put ideas together. It's not a matter of one person leading in with their ideas and not bringing the other 49 ideas into the mix. I think we need to tap into everything. And I think if I could wish for one thing moving forward, it'd be that more teamwork down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. I hope you feel better informed of the vote you will cast. After all, democracy is not supposed to be a spectator sport. Thank you for being an attentive and considerate audience, and a hearty thanks to the 4 candidates who were so professional and informative, a pleasant contrast to what we see too often in national politics. Good evening.